Welcome and thank you so much for tuning in to The Object of the Game. For Coach Chuck Kyle, I'm Maureen Kyle, and this is a show where we're talking about especially youth sports, how it's being coached, how it's being taught, and how your kids are learning life lessons through whatever sport they're playing. And of course, here we're a little bit biased towards football. We got a lot of football talk going on, but it's because of the experience you've had, Dad, and the people that you've gotten a chance to meet. But really, I want you to talk a little bit, because our guest today plays right into this, about the youth programs that are available throughout Northeast Ohio and what committees you're on. We've talked about it a little bit before, but just in case somebody hasn't watched before this.
Right. Well, our guest today, Jason Dunn, I'm on a committee with him with the Cleveland Browns, and it deals with specifically youth football, high school, and the younger ones. And we have a group that is really focusing in on how to make it a better experience. And the Browns are all into that. And Jason is the director of the Muny League in Cleveland that has, through his efforts, I'm going to say that right now, through his efforts, has expanded to really Northeast Ohio. And the beauty of it is they have done certainly teaching the game and concentrating on a safe environment, and adapting and make sure that the kids know what they're doing and it's handled well. But even more than that these kids can learn if you get enthusiastic about something, if you establish some self-esteem in what you're doing, take pride in the way you act, and the discipline that's involved in sports, okay? You got to do it right, or you're penalized or whatever, or foul or whatever it is. If you're disciplined and working with your teammates, good things happen. Well, what Jason is doing with the Muny Football League, and again, like I said, it's all Northeast Ohio. We're getting these kids really into a very, very positive program, and it's pretty exciting for what they're doing.
Yeah, and in every community, kids need a safe place to go to learn a sport, learn these life lessons, but also then there's other parents in the form of coaches checking in on them and helping them form these work ethic habits, form, some discipline. And you're going to hear Jason talk about the programs that are available pretty much in your own backyard and all across the community, and how he's grown that. But how do you think that just briefly, if you could talk about the importance of a coach being that, almost second parent, where kids throughout the summer, especially when you're not in class, having somewhere to check in.
Right. The important thing that parents and some people are thinking about volunteering in some of these sports is to realize they're not just a manager here, just, hey, I'll diagram something, or I'll line this thing up for you and put the personnel here. It's also teaching the disciplines of say, safe technique, and taking that as a responsibility as a coach, right? And let's take that even a step further. When you say you become almost like a second parent, you're going to see kids kind of show up sometimes, and something's wrong with the little kid over there. Something's wrong with him. You can tell, all right? Well, that's a big moment. Yeah, you have all this practice going on, and you have this list of all these things you have to go through. But a good coach is going to look over and go, I got to talk to that little kid. Something's wrong. And those little moments are so important, because you just don't know what just may happen. And that's what I think when we're with the Browns, we're working on it's called the Winning Edge program that we're trying to get into a little bit more, that understanding that you're kind of a second parent there in that situation. So there's just a lot of opportunities. How about that? There's just a lot of opportunities that we want coaches and parents to understand. It's more than winning the game. Yeah. Way more.
Right. Way more than trophies. And our guest today, he's going to talk about that again, Jason Dunn, who is the director of Cleveland Muny Football. He's going to join us in just a few minutes. But before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsors of the show. We want to thank Infinity of Beechwood and Akron. These guys have been great. Discover the Infinity QX60, an elegant design, advanced features, and versatile comfort for every journey. You can visit Infinity of Beechwood or Infinity of Akron and experience true automotive excellence. This is luxury redefined. So thank you again to Infinity of Beechwood and Akron. And when we come back, we are going to dive into everything youth football, the programs that are available, and what it teaches with Jason Dunn. Welcome back to the object of the game. And on this show, we always talk about the importance of youth sports, the leagues that are out there, and the opportunities that kids have. And today, our guest, Jason Dunn, is one of the forces behind one of the biggest leagues that kids throughout Northeast Ohio are getting a chance to get involved in youth football. So, Jason, thank you so much for joining us in studio today.
Oh, it's an absolute honor to be here, and I thank you guys for having me on.
I'm excited to hear about it. And I've heard about you for a long time. You two know each other pretty well. Why don't you go through, Dad, just explain how you've met Jason?
Well, by the time I met him, he was well involved with MUN Football. I'm sure he's going to go, he was a kid. All right.
We won't get to that. Yeah.
No. But, the way it just so a couple of our players, some of our players came from, and they talked about him, talked about the league. So anyway, and as with the Browns being involved, because I'm tied in there a little bit, they realize how important MUN Football is. So we end up being on some committees together. I spoke at one of your preseason, all the coaches have to come, right, and talked about rookie tackle and all that sort of thing. So we've ended up, we're on a committee together and so on, but I can't tell you how this young man has taken a great program. Joe Record started it, was working with it a long time ago, and Joe, he kind of had to move along a little bit, more of the president he is now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, they picked this young guy to come on and do it. And that's
director,
a credit to him, a great credit to him.
So you are director of MUN Football.
Yes, director of MUN Football.
Yeah. So you played for MUN Football?
I played for MUN Football. I played with the East 97th Street Bulldogs.
That's right. I had that written down there. The Bulldogs. There he is.
Is that how you started, or when did you start playing football? What did you grow up playing?
So I grew a love for football. Of course, just watching it on television. Every Saturday we'd be at Uncle's house watching Notre Dame. That was the thing to do on the weekend. Back then we used to play a lot of street football. Emulating our pros. I wanted to be Joe Montana. I always wanted to be a quarterback.
Yeah.
But deep down inside, I was really a lineman.
Yeah. Every kid begins throwing a football, right? Yeah. And then gradually, come on, let's be realistic. But that's how it starts.
Yeah.
It really does.
So then what age did you get involved in MUN?
So I started playing MUN. I went out for the team. I think I was around 10 or 11 years old. And my first time playing organized football and that real structure. I was a grandma's boy, mama's boy. So
never told me that.
Went out there first year. Well, I wasn't quite cut out for it. I quit. Coaches yelling, it's hot. We running laps. I'm a little pudgy kid. So it didn't work out for me first year. But I knew I wanted to play.
So then, you got on the team then, right? No, or did you get on the team the next year? What happened?
Yeah. After quitting the first year, I went out again the next year. So you can't quit. And then some of my buddies, they were playing and. I didn't want them to show me up. Oh man, you've been talking all this football talk. You do a great job on the street playing ball and a lot. And you can't handle it on the field. So I got it together, and I had some coaches that really pushed me and really, spoken to me.
Yeah. Can I ask, what was the difference maker from, the year you didn't want to play? That 10 and 11 year. I'm asking selfishly because I have a 9, almost 10-year-old who needs motivated
on the way here. She was even talking about this.
She needs extra push. So was it the coaching? What was it that made you?
Well, it clicked.
The
enthusiasm.
Made you click? Yeah.
You know what? The enthusiasm, and I think the fact that all my buddies continued to play. So each week they're going to the games, they're coming back, they got their equipment on, they're excited about what they did, in the game, whether they won or lost. And that year, the year that I didn't play, that I quit, team made it to the championship.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So
And,
they had a lot to talk
They
about.
had a lot to
didn't
talk
they?
about.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a part of helping them get back to a championship.
Yeah.
And that next year, like I said, just it clicked.
Right.
And the coaches really pushed me, and they didn't let me try to go out there and be shy and hide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what honestly parents should realize. There's a entry point. If a kid's not ready, you can kind of see it, but the light bulb can go on, and you kind of let that enthusiasm kick in. And notice something: his enthusiasm hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
Right. Take a look what he's doing. He started coaching. 2009. He started a team to be involved with Muny. When you start a team from scratch, that isn't just, hey, fellas, show up. He had to do a lot of work to even get the kids' outfits and everything like that.
So
within how many years? That was 2009. I just want to show this. And 7 years later, he must have done a tremendous job because 7 years later, they asked him to be the director.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
You're 7 years. You're still the young coach. That's what I remember. Come on.
Yeah.
But that's great. That's such a compliment to you.
Yeah, I still love being out there, being engaged, being on the field.
Right.
I definitely miss coaching, but I understand it's it was a bigger need for me to come on this side,
Right.
And so I went from dealing with kids day to day to now dealing with the adults day to
Yeah.
day.
Oh.
Completely different.
Somebody told me, and it might be a future guest on this show, I think she said, "Oh, you just have the world's largest group of orphans that you're handling," then, is what she called it, when you have to handle the adults and the parents and the coaches. I got to ask then, when you were coaching and even now as director and you're seeing these kids come through the youth program, do you ever see a mini Jason Dunn, the one who's a little bit shy and a little bit timid, that that kid needs it to click, and you're like, that kid's going to get it?
There's plenty.
Yeah.
So in my coaching style, I believe in every kid is different. So you approach every practice that way. I never coach two kids the same. Some kids can take the tough love. Some kids, you got to hug them first.
Right.
And you just got to really, really get to know that kid. And we have plenty of shy kids that turned out to be beasts.
Yeah.
And like I said, you'd be surprised at what you can get out of a kid just by speaking, life into them, just by giving them that extra push that the parents, they can't give them at home, and the parents rely on us to be that, extra set of eyes, the extra voice,
Right.
That's so important.
I mean, coaching youth especially. I mean, I talk about high school, but coaching youth especially. There is a parenting element that is important, because you even say a parent can say things how many times, but a coach says something. I mean, over the year, I've said this before on the show. I'll have kids come back 20 years later going, "Coach, I remember when you pulled me aside and told me to do this and do this," and I can't remember that at all, but the kid does,
Yeah.
right?
Remembers it.
And that's the way coaching is. And at that moment, that's what that kid needed, and looks what's happened. And so, I mean, some of the guys that have come through Muny football. I mean, Desmond Howard. Want to see him every weekend or every week on television, right? Desmond Howard and Troy Smith, Ted Ginn Jr. We had Ted sitting there a month ago or something like that. And Draymond Jones, St. High
Jones.
School man.
Yeah.
Draymond, he's still playing, right? And Dante Whitner. I mean, I could list.
The list goes
Oh
on.
my
Yeah.
God, I could list plenty that have gone. Major college, but made it to the pros and everything. I mean, coming through this league.
Yeah. Do you think that, what do you think the factor is? Do you think getting involved at that young age, and we're going to talk about how football has evolved for young people over the past couple of decades, but I think there's an internal debate all the time of at what age do I get my kid involved? And especially football gets a little tricky. We've talked about it a lot. I know a lot of parents who get a little nervous about the physicality of the sport. So it's sort of like, oh gosh, do I want to put my little kid in here? But why do you think that might set them up for some of the success if they get involved at a young age?
Yeah. So, we have so many different game formats. Where, a parent, they may be nervous about a kid playing tackle football. we have flag football. We start kids off as early as 5 years old, and I feel that. So I'm still fielding calls, and our flag football season ends in another week.
Oh my gosh.
It's very important to get the kids started as early as possible to just build that structure, and not only the physical activity, getting out there running,
Right.
being around their peers, learning from their peers, learning from the coaches, other adults, and just that engagement, and more so socially. They just need that engagement because right now we're battling technology. We're battling, cell phones, iPads, all these streaming services that can catch the kids' attention in a negative way.
Yeah.
So we need these kids being more engaged socially on the field.
Yeah. So much is involved right there in listening to it. You said, hey, they're 5 years old. All right, picture those games. Kids are giggling,
Yeah.
laughing,
Right.
right? They're bumping into each other, laughing, and they're not sitting at home with the phone or who knows being alone, and it's their friends. That's the fun part, right? And they're having fun, right? But notice they're having fun running around, right? And doing movement, and these are things that people have to realize. They may not be, catching the long bomb or throwing it, right? But they're just doing athletic movement, laughing while they're doing it, and having fun.
Falling in
And
love with
that goes so far.
Yeah.
It does. And see, and the field is an extension of the classroom.
There you go.
In the
Whoa.
field.
Yeah, man.
Well, you guys must have been hanging out a lot.
Yeah, we hang around.
You just think, you got a 5-year-old kid. This kid comes in knowing absolutely nothing. And, to go out there and teach this kid from the ground up, learning, left from right, X's and O's, terminology, route concepts, accepting a handoff, which way to go. It's like being in the classroom. You're teaching the kid mathematics, teaching the you're sitting in English class, learning.
That's right.
The kids got to read the playbook as well.
Right. He's got to listen to the call.
Yeah.
Yeah, son, you can't daydream here.
Yeah.
You can't go looking at the birds going by.
Yeah.
Right? And you know what, son? There's penalties. You're not allowed to do that. Oh, the whole team is penalized because you did something there that wasn't right. Oh, do you think a kid has to learn that, huh? Oh, it's a game, but it's all these things that we talk about every week, I think, but it's just important.
Yep, Jason, you're in the right place.
And it just happens. It happens because it's the sport. It's not forced.
Right. I want to talk about how Muny has grown, especially under your leadership, but we're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we are going to have more with Jason Dunn. Welcome back. Our guest today, Jason Dunn. He is the director of Cleveland MUN Football. And if you haven't heard about this league, you're going to get a great education today on how this is changing our community all across Northeast Ohio. And Jason, I was just asking you the history of Muny League because I didn't realize it's as old as it is. Can you tell us a little bit about the history?
Absolutely. So the Cleveland MUN Football League was established in 1919.
Wow.
I had to go back and do a little research and do some homework, just so I could try to get a grasp of the history. It started back, actually one of the oldest in the country, if not the oldest league in the country. Goes back to being just a rec league, and at some point MUN Football also operated in an adult league.
Wow.
Yeah, and and like I said, it's been so many greats that have come through MUN Football, over the course of history. Joe Wise, I know Joe Wise Sr. Was the director. Joe Record took it over after Joe Wise, and then myself was appointed by Joe Record. And the league is grown, from the time I've taken over. And you go back to some of the the John Hicks, some of the Desmond Howards, the Troy Smiths,
There's an unbelievable
Robert
list.
Smiths,
Unbelievable list.
Yeah.
You can see
the list is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, was the point to get football to just anybody who wanted to play? What was the concept behind MUN Football?
Yeah, so any kid, again, it started off just the city of Cleveland, and we were backed and supported by the rec department. So for a long time, the Muny League was run by the city of Cleveland Recreation Department, and at some point, not sure of what year, but it used to be called the Cleveland Browns Muny Football League.
Okay.
Where the Cleveland Browns, was the big supporter. Same as today, they're still a big supporter. But yeah, any kid that want to play football, we make sure there's no barriers, especially when it comes to financial constraints. So we have over 500 volunteer coaches who we call community activists, because these guys, when I say they do a tremendous job and they're out in the community, promoting the programs, getting kids. And we all know the game has been under attack for years.
Oh, yeah.
And for us to withstand hit after hit each year with the attacks that's going on football, to see our numbers increase each year, that's a true testament to the coaches.
All right, and let's just raise the flag for football here for a minute, and I'm not knocking it, but notice what the city of Cleveland, with the game of football and what it's become. There's a lot of sports out there that where's it involved in, like the inner city Cleveland? Where is it? Show me where it's involved, where guys, how many volunteering to do this thing and believed in the game of football. And we could sit here and list how many kids that it changed their life. That's the thing that people have to realize, that this thing goes all the way back to 1919, and look what it gave to kids, what they learned from it, and it affected their livelihood, their careers, and so on. So that part of the history is unique, very unique. When you say Cleveland is a football town, and I know we're kind of that way a little bit. Okay?
You're a little biased.
A little biased.
A little biased toward the sport.
I admit, good confession, but it's earned it. The sport earned it with people that believe in what that sport could do, and people who have supported it. Right? That's an important story.
As somebody who has gone through the program, playing for Muny Football, and now you're
the Bulldogs. He played. Come on.
Yeah,
you played for the Bulldogs.
I'm sure you've met people all along the way that have played and then gone on. Do you hear stories? Do people come back and say, like, "Oh gosh, playing in Muny just changed my life. Like, this was." It's easy to to go, Desmond Howard and that, but there's other people that have gone on that weren't pro football players. Right.
I got a story to tell as of this morning.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I went in and took my car to E-Check this morning, and I'm going through E-Check, talking to the service tech who's seeing me, and the voice was distinctive. I'm listening to the voice, and he's looking at me. I'm looking at him. Haven't seen this guy in 30 years. At least. And right there, he was one of my youth coaches.
Oh, really?
One of my youth coaches at the Bulldogs. Shout out to Coach Mike. One of my coaches. Right. And, right then and there, we just got to talking and everything. And, and he just talked about, his love for the kids and, how much he enjoyed, being around us, the championships, just what he poured into it. We just shared stories. And like I said, I get it all the time, kids coming back that I've coached, that come back, "Oh, Coach, what if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. Or if it wasn't for this opportunity that you were able to provide, And sometimes it's just connections, I introduce a kid to someone, and then now it's up to you to go out there and take advantage of it,
Yeah.
So, I've personally talked to Desmond on the phone,
Right.
I've talked, sat down with, the Troy Smiths, and, these guys will tell you, they still have stories about Muny football. Jerome Baker had a conversation with him where he talked about some of his best games, Muny football.
It's amazing.
Yes. They'll be in high school, so they're in the in the bus. You're going somewhere, and they're arguing about their youth game. We should have won that. How many times I had to? What are you guys talking about? It's 4 years ago. Cut it out.
So, how many kids? You said it's grown over the past couple of years. I mean, despite the, again, nervous parents or the attacks that football has been under, why do you think it's grown, especially here locally?
So in 2017, when I ran my program, I always wanted to be engaged with the kids all the time. So, at that point, it was only viewed as recreation. We play during the season. After the season is over, no more organized activities. It's over with. But I always had kids calling me, hey, coach, what's next? What's next? So from football, I started the basketball program in the winter. I started baseball. That was my first love.
Yeah.
But I started baseball, so we're doing indoor training for baseball. So now, all right, we're indoors. We got turf. We can do indoor football training. So from there, just seeing that the parents, had that need to have their kids engaged in doing things year round, I started flag football in 2017. Flag football, I never imagined it would grow this big. And I remember being down at the national conferences down in Indianapolis when we used to talk about flag football with USA football back then. And, like I said, in 2017, went from, 10 teams, 100 kids, till today, over 100 teams, over 1,200 kids, and 20 all-girls flag teams.
How about that?
Yeah.
Very good. Hey, I'm going to interject right now. He has a full-time job besides this. Yeah. So, folks, he's rolling there. I'm going,
yeah.
Okay, that's 12 months out of the year he's talking about. Yeah.
Jason,
Come on.
We're going to take a break in a second, but give your employer a shout out here. Where's your full-time job?
Come on, we got to pump them up.
Yeah, so I've been on the job for 26 years. Work for SE Blueprint Incorporated, right here in the city of Cleveland, downtown Cleveland.
Oh my gosh.
And been there. Kevin Anderson is our president. I'm an assistant vice president of operations. Yeah. So we handle reprographics. We deal with the construction industry, where we do information management. We do large format printing, construction printing. So it's a niche field, but I've been there for 26 years and I love it.
Yeah, that's a pretty high end job there, and then you're also doing
busy.
This on the side.
Yeah, and then you're listening to all of what he's been doing with the youth, with the Muny Football League. Because I earlier, I want to bring up what you're doing. Well, I have 2 full-time jobs, and he does.
Yeah,
it's 2 full-time jobs. The way this works.
I want to talk about the boom that is flag football, especially with girls, and what you're seeing there, and then also rookie tackle. We have to get into that. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're back with the director of Muny Football, Jason Dunn, and we've been talking about the growth that we've seen in youth football, especially across Northeast Ohio, and specifically with Muny Football. But I want to talk about girls flag football. We've talked about it a little bit on this show. It has really been picking up in attention, not just, headlines, but also the Browns have been investing in girls flag football and some of the programs to get it started and off the ground. What are you seeing in terms of demand and support for girls playing this form of football? So
our flag football league has always been CoEd. So we had girls over the years that was involved. But, I sit on the council with the Cleveland Browns along with Coach Chuck Kyle, and just seeing how flag football started to grow through high school. And, I'm just sitting in the meeting, I'm quiet, but I'm listening. And I say, you know what, I think I can do this. I can get some girls engaged. I can get some girls to play. And, I talked it over some of the coaches. So last year, we had our first 2 all-girls teams, Richmond Heights and Garfield. So those girls played a schedule against each other twice, but against boys.
Oh, wow.
Those girls won some games last year against boys. And, I did, a pretty good job of promoting it, so anywhere the girls were playing out there with cameras, because, we got to capture it. We got to put it out on social media, and we just got to let people know that it exists. So once the season was over, actually midway through the season, calls just start coming in. And, we promoted all off season. And this year, we went from 2 teams last year to 20 this year. And that number is going to continue to grow. We have 2 of our all-girls teams that's participating in the NFL flag Cleveland Browns Regional this Saturday. So, hey, good luck to Richmond Fast Break and Garfield Brats.
Oh, I like
Interesting nicknames they'll come up with. The girls are very creative.
But this is amazing that this is now available. I mean, I don't know how much you guys talk about personal lives here, but they're right across from you is a father of 3 girls. I have a brother, but then there were 3 of us girls, and this was not available to us in any way. And I mean, I remember I had to stop playing in the backyard because my older cousin would tackle, or like my brother would tackle, and I'm out. But to have this available to girls who love the game as much as their brothers and their cousins and whoever else is just, it's just incredible to see that it's come this far. Do you see a lot of future success with the sport?
I do. And you know what? I can point out and say that the interest was probably sparked by the NCAA run of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in basketball, a sport that was unrelated to flag football.
Yeah.
But just seeing the exposure that the women was getting, on the college basketball scene going into the WNBA, and I think it really opened doors for us to let our girls know, hey, you guys can be on that same stage. And the fact that flag football is now an Olympic sport, and colleges are offering scholarships for flag football.
Yes.
Right now we are the feeder because it's in high school. It's in high schools now, and we've been, like I said, we're on the committee. We've been pushing to try to get it sanctioned with OSHA. Well, these girls, these seniors, they're moving on. These juniors, they only got another year. So you're going to need a feeder system to keep feeding and keep, increasing numbers in the high school. So, that's where we come in at.
What he's talking about right there is important. The Ohio Athletic Association gets it. They just have to see this group coming up.
Yeah.
They have to see, okay, we're not just going to do it without having any information. But what he's talking about right there is you're hearing him go from a couple teams to 20. That's what Ohio Athletic Association sees, that this is going to be an Ohio Athletic Association sport within a year or two, for sure. And, and let's be honest, Northeast Ohio has the most teams,
the most teams.
involvement. We got to get, hello, Cincinnati, let's go. You got a couple teams. Congratulations, let's go. And Columbus, let's go. And they're working on it.
What do you, again, so then maybe it's because I have the perspective of I have 3 girls at home. If somebody's out there thinking, I don't know, do I get my daughter involved in flag football? Like, what do you think physicality, like who, should it just be like come out and try it? It might be somebody who's shy this year. Like, what's the characteristics where a parent should say, okay, maybe this is my daughter's sport?
Yeah. So, I think what our coaches did is, we got cheerleaders. So the coaches went out there. We have a team full of cheerleaders that's playing flag football, that's enjoying it. We get girls that play softball. They run track. So the initial target was going out there targeting female athletes who are already playing youth sports, and and some of their peers, they bring their peers along. So it's kind of like word of mouth. I see my friend doing it. I want to do it as well. And for the parents, just bring them out there. And let them come out there and see if it's for them. A lot of girls that's playing flag football in high school, they never played football. Right. They just went out there and they seen, hey, we got a club sport now. I'm gonna try it out.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. How the success of his wife's developing of the cheerleader, but they're athletic.
They're athletes.
They are athletes.
Yeah.
The snap of at a football. Watch the choreographing that's going on, the footwork that's going. Everybody thinks it's just a bunch of this, and the footwork and the balance and everything. And here you have girls that are doing this, and they're watching football games going, yeah, we want to play. Come on. I mean, they're flag football. Okay, they're on the playground playing tag and running around. Okay, now you got to grab the flag. All right, now let's go. There's a game. You got to score. Okay, they've seen it for years. They can do this and enjoy it. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. That there's so much the camaraderie. We've talked about this so many times. Football has that camaraderie that is just built in on it. So, and you're hearing how this is going to. I mean, come on, it's a clear bet this is going to work really well.
Yeah.
It's here to stay.
So, what age do they continue to play co-ed flag football? Have you separated it fully, girls flag and boys flag, or are they playing co-ed up until a certain point?
Yeah, so we start off at we call it 6U, so that's our 5 and 6 year olds. So we do co-ed at at 6U, at 8U, which is 7 and 8, and then the all girls team start at 10U. So
okay,
9, 10, and then we got 12U and 14U.
Yeah. Do you see a different camaraderie, like when it is the co-ed? Do you see them?
Yeah, that's an interesting
working
question.
Differently with each other than when you separate the sexes?
You see a little different. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the girls, the girls are national leaders out there.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of the games, I've started officiating, so I've did some of the co-ed games, and most of the girls that play with the boys, the girls are pretty good, especially at a young age, and they take a real leadership role. And and it transcends when they go to an all-girls team. The girls, the communication, them working together, them building each other up. It's not a lot of with the boys. You mess up a play and your teammates getting on you. Where the girls, they're doing more picking up than really criticizing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Then do the boys pick up on that too? Like if they see a girl saying, "Hey, shake it off. Do the boys start to do that too?
Yeah.
That's a good lesson right there. That's a really good one. Yeah.
Because
I got to believe there would be kind of a different shifting of a gear there. You know? It's the boys. They're, a guy, come on, girls, let's do this. I could see that being kind of an interesting little dynamic.
Yeah,
nice.
That happens, I think, in a lot of youth. Like, I've seen it with soccer, where when they're really young, it's co-ed, but they separate them so quickly. Like at a young age, they do start to separate them so much. It's interesting just to hear that perspective, to hear how they work together. I want to ask about rookie tackle, but I know we're going to run out of time for a break. So let's take a break right now, and we're going to talk about how rookie tackle got kind of blocked. It got blocked for a little bit, but thanks to Jason, it has taken off. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are watching The Object of the Game, and our guest today is Jason Dunn, the director of Cleveland Muny Football. And if your kid is playing youth football in Northeast Ohio, most likely he has impacted the game that your child is playing, and especially with, as we talked about, rookie tackle. Now, Dad, you were telling me that this was an issue.
This is a good story. This is a very interesting story. So, the Cleveland Browns, we were going to leagues and going, hey, for the younger kids, the idea of you could see the enrollment going down in some leagues because the concussion issues and all that sort of stuff. And so, again, USA Football, we had Andy Ryland on a while who really came up with the idea, kind of adapting the football for the little kids. All right, let's go to what happens here. So we're talking about this, and he's picturing his league. He goes, we need that. Mm-hmm. I remember the conversation. We need that. He goes, we're lining up a big full field, 11 kids on each side, and you were sitting there going, the fundamentals are not there. You got 11 kids. You're just trying to get them to go in the right place when you call a play. The fundamentals were not being worked on as much. And this adapted. The field's smaller, and it's, again, not as many kids and so on like that. It gives the coach a chance to really work on technique and so on. So he's sitting there going, we need that. We need that. Well, now the only problem is he's got to go to the league. Now you go ahead, and he's gung-ho, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, so I looked at the concept of rookie tackle, and right away I understood it, and I seen the good that it could do for the league, for the kids, the coaches, and I guess I wasn't a good salesman, that day, So I took it back, and again, going through the concussions and declining numbers, parents being unsure if they want the kids to play football. Right. Took it to the coaches. We have what we call coordinators meetings, where we get all the owners together and we do those monthly. And I'm trying to pitch this. Hey, look at this. It's a new game format. It's great for us. And these guys, man, we play 11-man football. We playing for championships. We get the trophy. You mean to tell me you want to change from 11 to 7? And I said, yeah, it'll work. And like I said, just I'm showing them slides. I got handouts. Coaching gave me material. But again, the guys were just so stuck on the game they recognized, as 11-man football. So it didn't work out for us, and we would have been the first program in the country to pilot rookie tackle, which was also exciting, to me. So that first year didn't work out.
Yeah, but COVID.
And COVID hit.
I got it. As difficult a time period that was, COVID opened it up for you a little bit.
COVID opened the door for us. When we came out of COVID, of course, everybody understands everything shut down.
You had to shut down. You couldn't play that.
We couldn't play
the year
ball.
of COVID, none of the kids could play. Mm-hmm. So the league.
Yeah.
Okay.
And coming out of COVID, the demand for anything, if we played hopscotch, we would have had 100 kids lined up to play hopscotch. So brought this back to the coaches, and actually, and I'm not going to, before I even brought it back to the coaches, I received calls saying, hey, Dunn, remember that rookie tackle you were talking about? They need to play. They need to play. And I said, yeah, it'll work. And you thinking about, doing that again? I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, coming out of COVID, we did rookie tackle. Again, had a few teams. And rookie tackle for us is sheer development.
Right.
We don't keep stats. There's no standings. There's no wins and losses. The kids are out there having fun.
Yeah.
We want to see the coaches really coaching the kids up, really teaching them.
Technique.
Kids learning technique.
Learn different positions, all that. Have fun. Yeah. Go ahead.
And that was different from, going out there and doing a playoff, playing for a championship.
Yeah.
And like I said, the rookie tackle, hey, at the end, you give all the kids a medal. You throw them a pizza party. They come out there, and we do it in the middle of the week. We do it on, it started off as just being Wednesdays, Wednesday evenings, and then, it started growing, so now it's Wednesday and Thursday evenings. It started off as at one site. Now we're doing it at multiple sites. And just seeing the parents out there on these Wednesdays and Thursdays out there, I'm talking about stands are full. Any given, Wednesday and Thursday, we talking about two sites. You probably looking at 1,000 spectators watching rookie tackle.
Right.
They're
seeing these little kids getting it, and hey, first quarter he played guard. Hey, he's trying a different position. How interesting that is, and kids having fun doing it, and it's a simpler game. It's a simpler game. But so the coach can concentrate on technique, right? There's blocking. I don't care what position.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to block. On defense, you got to learn how to tackle. And because the field is, the hashes are basically the out of bounds. Or the field's gotten is a little more controlled environment. More controlled environment.
Yeah.
And the kids have fun, and parents sitting there, they
love
were
it.
riot watching this thing. They really do.
And it is, as we've mentioned before on this show and again in this interview, this is, from a parent, I hope they realize the safety that, of teaching a kid the fundamentals at the young age so that they don't go out there when they're, in middle school and all of a sudden they're doing something the wrong way and then getting injured. I mean, as a parent who's consistently worried about are they doing the right form and protecting their young bones and their muscles and everything, how important do you, both of you, view this as when they're young, it's about learning the proper technique, and it's not, you already mentioned they get a medal, but I think people get so hung up on winning that game or winning that championship, but that's not what this age bracket is about.
No, not at all. See, and I look at it like this. I look the rules are geared towards safety. So with the rookie tackle, you got your center, you got two guards. Your guards are in 2-point stance. So they're not, they're not in the traditional three with the head down. You're looking at, talk about young kids with a helmet.
Yeah.
And the head might not lift up.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So you got the kids, they're already in a protected position.
Get their head out of the way.
There's no blitzing. So it allows, the lineman enough time to go and engage with the defender. You got defensive linemen, linebackers. They can flow and watch the ball. And again, they're young kids. There's not a lot of momentum being built up with the smaller field. But one cutback kid can still be gone.
Yeah, the running back can't just be the fastest kid in the league. He's got to actually make a cut.
Yeah.
Hey, is that football? Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Okay. It simplifies the game, but to the point of the techniques and the structure that they're going to use the rest of their careers, and let the kid learn that. That's the high school coach will thank you if you can teach that kid. Hey, he knows how to block. He knows he learned tackling the safer way and things like that. Yeah. When you're blitzing little kids, what are we trying to do here, right?
Yeah.
Coaches come up with all these wild blitzes. Come on.
Yeah.
There's the kid you're blocking. Okay, buddy, good luck.
Yeah.
We're going to teach you how to do that.
Right.
And that's all. That's all they can handle at that age.
Yeah. I have to admit, I don't know what our. I don't think I've gotten any demographic data on who exactly is watching the show. But just in case you are a parent who has a kid and you're wondering, do I put them in football? Jason, tell me about the summer programs that you have going on in case somebody does, this is striking a chord with somebody and they say, I want to see if my kid, boy or girl, wants to learn the game of football, learn it at a young age or whatever age, and learn these fundamentals.
Yeah. So most schools end, at the end of May. So we, back in the past, we used to open the season after the 4th of July holiday. So now camps open June 1st. And, you can visit our website, www.munfootball.com. www.cmfleague.org, or you can call area code 216-322-6689 to get information. We have camps going on throughout Northeast Ohio. We have programs, rookie tackle, flag football, cheer and dance, 11-man football. We have programs offering day camps. We have a lot of football camps that's coming up, both during the day and in the afternoon. The Legends Series with the Cleveland Browns. All the players are in town now doing their football camps. So we have a lot of activities for the kids to do this summer.
And we kind of alluded to it, but your wife runs a huge cheerleading organization.
Yeah, so the Cleveland Muny Football Cheer, we have over 600 participants in cheer, and again, that's throughout Northeast Ohio. They have over 200 volunteer coaches who, same as football, community activists. They go out there and they're our voice piece out in the community. They're pushing the word. They're keeping kids engaged. They're doing it year round, and a lot of those girls are playing flag football right now too.
Okay.
So big shout out to our cheerleaders.
So we are going to have Stephanie as a guest.
Yeah,
one of these
I'd love
days,
it. I'd love it.
That would be really interesting perspective
Yeah.
of cheerleading. And the girls are at the games. They're
Yeah.
seeing the game,
Yeah.
and they're going.
Then they're going,
Come
I can
on.
do that.
Yeah,
I can
do
catch that ball.
Yeah.
You're not out of the hot seat yet. You
Yeah.
have your English lesson before
Oh,
we go.
yeah.
But we're
We
going
got
to
our
take a
vocab.
quick break before we get to the vocab word and the quote. Welcome back. It is the English lesson portion of the object of the game here, where we take one of those words that Coach has come up with, a long list, and where it applies to life. So, Jason, I don't know if he's filled you in on this part.
These are themes I didn't come up with them. Okay, I mean
He creates
listed
the
it.
list.
Yes, but they certainly the idea, and you know this. You look at your statement of Muny Football, and a lot of them are already listed there.
Yes.
This, that are on that list about. Does it apply to life? Yes. Does it apply to football? Yes. And that's what we're looking at. So, what hit your eye?
Okay, accountability.
That's
Okay.
a good one.
Accountability. Working with kids, you want kids to have that sense of self-responsibility, and you have to be accountable for all actions. Both whether it's at home with your parents, in the classroom with your teachers, or in the field with your coaches. And again, we're dealing with youth, where we're trying to teach these kids the rights from the wrongs, how to accept, a constructive criticism, how to be, leaders in their community. We want these kids to all of them to be phenomenal. And you have to be accountable, and you have to accept that. Sometimes you have to look in the mirror. And so we want these kids, as they progress in life, moving on from youth to middle school, high school, and, college into adulthood, to always be accountable for your actions. Don't deflect. Always be accountable.
I like that.
Yeah, the importance of that. Hopefully, football helps teach that you're part of a team, and you make that block, your whole team benefits. You miss that block, you're hurting the team. And that's a motivation for a kid.
It is.
That is a big motivation. Hey, I can't let these guys down. I gotta do this, and the coach told me how to do this, and here we go. You learn that, right? And that come on, that that goes on in life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of kids learning that at an early age, right?
Is that something, when you look back at when you played Muny football, can you think of a time where you learned your accountability lesson?
Yeah, I learned my accountability lesson. So when I played, we had a weight limit.
Oh.
And you had to stay under a certain weight in order to play, and that was weekly. I hurt my team one week because we had a big game, and I missed weight because I pigged out on McDonald's.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I really pigged out. 20-piece McNugget, Big Mac. So yeah, I overdid it. I didn't make weight that game, and I ended up coming clean with my coach.
Yeah.
About it, and I was held accountable for it.
Yeah.
That I paid for it that next week.
Yeah.
But I accepted it.
Yeah, because okay, but what hurt really was you let your buddies down there. You couldn't pass by that extra plate or whatever, huh? Right?
Mm-hmm.
he mentioned her, that pudgy kid that he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not pudgy now.
No,
He's in good shape
I
now.
know.
But,
That's why
you know,
I'm laughing, because
yeah.
it's surprising. Yeah. But you know what? Kids, again, even with diet, I've had my kids involved in programs where they give them a handout of like, make sure you're eating the healthy foods before a game. Don't eat the junk food before the game. You're going to feel not yourself. You're going to, make sure you're eating the fruits and veggies. And so, yeah, I love it. We also have a quote, a Shakespeare quote. Now, when you've been around Coach Kyle, has he ever accidentally slipped and given a Shakespeare quote?
Cut it out.
Because growing up, we got some Shakespeare
here
quotes here and there.
Okay, I taught it for a long time. Okay, just I have to say that every time, Pat. Because people are going, what's he doing?
No, I think this is pretty well known.
Okay.
This is pretty well known, Dad.
No, I did. Okay. All right. Now, picturing again, he was a young guy, and here's the East 97th Bulldogs in his first year. Yeah, he backed off, then he right, and the rest is history of what happened for him. So this is Henry V, okay, but this is actually stated by the Duke of Exeter or something like that, because the enemy, the French, heard about the reputation of this young king, and they weren't that impressed with him. And this Exeter kind of said, well, I got something to tell you. And here's what he said. And be assured, you'll find a difference, as we, his subjects, have in wonder found, between the promise of his greener days and these he masters now. That little kid quit that year. He quit. He came back. Now look what he's done. Right? His greener days. I don't know if I want to do that. Right? The greener days.
Yeah.
And as it says here, and look at these he's mastered now. Yeah. And the French paid for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
He's come a long way from the Bulldogs, I'll tell you that, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I read that and I went, oh yeah, I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that.
There you go. You have your own Shakespeare quote that fits into your life.
Well,
I bet you didn't expect
fit.
that on a
I
sports talk
didn't.
show. Right?
Yeah, good fit.
Yeah. And it gives me hope for my middle, who has some greener days
greener
going on
days.
right now.
That's
So,
what anybody ever said, oh, those greener days. That's
Yeah.
Shakespeare. It comes from Shakespeare.
Well, Jason, it's been so wonderful to have you. This has been so great to hear
Very
about
informative,
all
too.
of the things that you're doing for really all of our communities, all of the surrounding communities, and the youth that are all benefiting from the programs that you are establishing and putting into place. So it's been great to have you.
It's been an absolute honor, and I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Oh, yeah. We'll do this again.
Yeah,
we'll find,
absolutely.
as the girls are developing, all these things that are happening.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this again. This man's effort. I mean, yeah, he has a second full-time job.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. But what he's doing for these kids and for the programs and again, you're going to get another turf field to help you this year, okay, at Collinwood. So things are clearly on the way up.
Yep, still growing.
Yeah,
Jason,
fun.
thanks. And thanks to all of you for watching the Object of the Game here on Big Play Networks. Remember, you can catch other episodes that you've missed on the Big Play Network's YouTube page. You can specifically look for the Object of the Game. We are on all the social networks. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter. This show goes live on Twitter on Monday nights at 7 o'clock. And if you are tuned into The Rock Entertainment, you can catch us Mondays at 4. For Coach Kyle, I'm Maureen Kyle. Again, thank you so much for joining us on the